August of 2013, my wife and I, we purchased a house, and we discovered that home ownership might be the American dream, but really it turns out to be an immense nightmare. When we had the house, it was the first time I've ever been in a crawl space. I'm from Michigan, we're just used to basements, so to crawl underneath there and realize that it's pretty gnarly underneath there helped inspire the nightmare that actually exists within this movie, and kind of reminds me, and it's an idea that film can be catharsis. Seeing the built crawl space, that was exciting.
The crawl space, that was interesting because we had to link two entirely different sets, right? We had the location out at the schoolhouse, and then we had the studio location for the actual crawl space. So figuring out the dynamics of that, how that's going to work in terms of continuity and movement and camera positions, that was really challenging, and also something that I kind of had a lot of fun with.
Working with the scene shop with Kelly Mangan and Danny Mangan, what I learned is that for us, I thought building a crawl space would take a full summer. Danny did it in a day. Deconstructed it in the scene shop and put it up in here in about an hour, if not even that. That blows my mind. That's not a skill set I have.
The crawl space was set up in room 120, which is basically the film kids' only classroom space, and it operates also as a studio space. So we had this 8x16 crawl space in our classroom for the whole fall semester. The crawl space got brought to us, and that is when my job started, painting it and that sort of thing. I learned how to do that through Kelly Mangan, who is also a faculty member over in the theater department. I'd never really done this sort of thing before, and she was like, oh, this will be really easy and help you get the texture that you want. We predominantly used 3 basic materials. There's something called scenic dope, which is basically our glue. So we put that all over the panels, and then we were mixing jute in there as well as some cheesecloth. Now we did staple down some weeds from the director's yard on the walls, and that gave it 3D texture that we wanted. It was really interesting because there was only about 4 students who were working on it, and of course we are students, we have work, and we have extracurricular activities that we're trying to do. So finding time to come in and work on it where you have to be in your scrubs and get in paint all over you and stuff is pretty interesting considering we only had 3 weeks to do it.
The process of the studio experience class is students are working professionally on a set and getting credit. The writer, director, producer is a lot of times a faculty member, if not all the time, and then we also fill it out with other faculty members as heads of departments, or we bring in professionals from outside. For Beneath the Crawl Space, it was myself as writer, director, producer, Professor Thomas Castillo as director of photography, and Professor Daniel Williams came in and helped with gaffing and grip on some of the more difficult days. We have 3 semesters that we go through, and a lot of times it transitions through students. We have a pre-production, we have a production, and a post-production. And within there, students would help with the pre-planning, the visualization, and conceptualization of the project, so that when we actually go into production, it becomes more about the production meetings.
It was a new experience working on a project of this size rather than just student work. It was a new experience, I think, for a lot of students. A great experience for us. We all learned a lot, and it was just a lot of fun too. Everybody put their heart and soul into it, and you could tell everybody was having fun.
The students get really excited. It's more than just a job they have to show up to. So the students are really enthusiastic, really eager to help out. They want it to be a success. They want the film to be good, they want the experience to be good.
Students bring an energy to the set that really a professional set doesn't have because they're trying to prove themselves and they're willing to ask questions. Plus, you don't have to pay them, which is the #1 pro. But no, really, it's they got paid in credit, and their desire to learn and get experience, honestly, was the #1 pro because you can learn technical proficiency, and they did.
I don't want to say there are no cons. I think it's just sort of a lack of familiarity with either their position or just being on a film set and not understanding that even though there's a lot of downtime, you have to be ready to move at the drop of a dime so that things can keep moving.
Lack of experience and understanding that sometimes on a film set that things may not go as planned, and it's just about breaking through. But with the cons came even more pros. The fact that if anything went behind, they're able to persevere. If an effect didn't go through, they solved the problem very quickly, and you just really saw them move from students to kind of film professionals.
I feel like overall it's a really good experience. You know, I don't think we've had like any like really totally negative experiences or anything like that from working with students, because they are film students and, you know, they want to make it happen, and everybody, you know, comes in with a good attitude. So that's a pro, definitely. I was the director of photography.
Can you explain what that means?
What it means, I wonder sometimes what it means. It means I yell at people a lot. I ask for a lot of things. Basically, the director of photography is responsible for the look of the film, ranging from composition to lighting to all those types of things that, you know, actually create the visuals of the film.
I got the footage from the camera guys and logged it and transferred it onto the computer and organized it all into the files for the editor. At the time, I didn't know I was going to be the editor. When I started piecing it together, of course, it looked really rushed because it was a very like rough cut, and even using a black magic, it's a very flat image. I'm kind of excited to see what it's going to look like when everything's color corrected.
An assistant director creates a schedule for shooting to make sure everything runs as smoothly as it can. As we're shooting and just on set in general, making sure everybody gets lunch when they get lunch, and sticking to the basic schedule to make sure everything is going a-okay. In post-production, I have been organizing the website, all of our contact information, the photos that were taken on set, and then I'm also on our Facebook page doing the department head interviews, just asking about their experiences on set, and then I post those on the Facebook page. So I'm kind of creating a social media campaign.
I was the head of makeup and special effects. And then for post-production, I was helping out Kayla with a promotional film. It was a lot of looking up things on YouTube and just trial and error. We had a really long test period of just going through, trying the different effects and everything, like the throat slit. We definitely put at least 2 months worth of time into just perfecting that. It's to go along the neck, and it gets attached to the end of the tubing. Blood launches through it, and there's gonna be little slits along the side of it, so it'll just shoot out. It's a lot of work, but it was definitely a lot of fun.
Craft services is a lot like being the bass player in a band. Like, you're largely forgotten, but as soon as you hit your solo, everybody gets funky. And you're also a lot sexier than people would think.
While on set, during principal photography, I was a grip, so I worked closely with Matt Rayal, who was the gaffer on the project. During post-production, I am the promotional art development guy. I'm working on the movie poster right now, something I've never really done. I've just been doing a lot of sketching, and then I'm gonna actually take real photos from behind the scenes and props and stuff like that I'm gonna take with a digital camera and then put those into Photoshop or After Effects and manipulate them. We had kind of talked about making it look like 80s VHS box art, so that's kind of the aesthetic that we're going for. I feel like it's a lot of pressure, but it's a lot of fun as well. So I think it'll be worth it, and hopefully everybody will like it.
Well, I was a cultist. I played, in fact, the red mouse face cultist. I was responsible for the deaths of 2 people. That is great. I crucified a guy. Also, I edited the trailers, and I also made the teaser trailer for Beneath the Crawlspace. There was a lot of interaction with me and the director, and a lot of my own creative input. Well, I started off watching a lot of 70s and 80s exploitation film trailers. Then I just sat down in my bed and watched all the footage. And from there I generated ideas, you know, spent some time just like, you know, what if I do that? And then I do it.
Filmmaking is always a disaster, no matter what. It's chaos at first. and then it's not chaos, and then it's chaotic again, then it's not, then people are frustrated, then people aren't frustrated. It's the nature of the game.
The biggest challenge was making sure that we did stick to the schedule that we had previously created, which was hard at times because you can't predict everything that's going to happen. One of the days that we were shooting, the truck that we used to transport all the equipment just went missing in the morning. So we kind of had to scramble and get everything together in order to still make our arrival on location on time.
There's never enough prep time, and you sort of see this project coming down the pipeline, and it's months and months away, and you're like, okay, we'll get there, we'll figure it out, and then it's there.
When something does happen and something could potentially go wrong, then you have a lot of experience to fall back on, so you can fix the problems to the best of your abilities.
We're still at the truck stop, and we are trying to set up a special effects shot where the blood is coming out of Craig's neck. He just got killed by a cultist. We're having issues. We're not sure if it's with the blood coming out of the latex or the tube. Maybe because it is cold, it might be coagulating. That might be a thing. So we're all just kind of like hanging out as special effects does their thing.
One of the locations that we settled on a little earlier was actually more difficult. When we actually shot it and arranged it, we actually ended up hiding a lot of stuff. So you can't even tell where we are. We had a light go out and we just weren't able to run enough cable and have enough outlets to pull from to add more light. So I ended up just playing things pretty dark. And locations are important. They give you something to wrap your head around. It's important for the actors, it's important for the director. Being out at the schoolhouse actually gives you a feel for a place. We had the great hand gesture thing that we developed with barn doors because there was only one way in and out, so we'd have to communicate through the windows about what we wanted.
Outside of working at a university, they don't realize the amount of work that filmmaking actually is, and to see how much the students and how hard they worked, and even took the film on as their own and genuinely and sincerely cared about the project. That's a pretty darn proud moment right there. My favorite moment, though, is a personal moment. We were shooting our final scene at the adult bookmart down on 6th, and we had just finished a very difficult day. It was the longest day, probably about 13 hours, if not more. My favorite moment was when we finished. I turned around and I see all the students there smiling and laughing. And it genuinely and sincerely was a terrific moment because you realize that no matter how stressed you get, filmmaking is fun and creativity is fun. And be able to do this for a living is really an honor.